Welcome, curious minds. Today, we're not just exploring a topic, we're recounting a series of events that are truly unsettling. It's a case that baffled police, experts, and honestly, just about everyone who heard about it, left behind way more questions than answers. We're going to walk you through the bizarre, the tragic, and the, well, utterly inexplicable case of the Eriksson twins.
Indeed. And it's a chilling reminder, really, of how fast reality can seem to just unravel and how human behavior can sometimes defy any logical explanation we try to apply. We'll be going through the official reports, witness accounts, expert analysis, trying to piece together, a timeline of madness.
Okay, so our story kicks off in May 2008. It centers on twin sisters, Sabina and Ursula Eriksson.
Yeah.
They lived pretty separate lives at the time. Ursula was in the USA, Sabina was in Ireland, she had a partner, 2 kids there. And what's really striking is neither of them had any prior history of mental illness, no criminal records, nothing like that. It's this sort of normal background that makes what happened next so gripping and disturbing. So Friday, May 16th, Ursula arrives in Ireland to visit Sabina. The very next day, Saturday the 17th, 8:30 in the morning, they pop up in Liverpool, arriving by ferry. And almost straight away, things get strange. They actually went to a UK police station. Sabina told them she was concerned for her children's safety, her kids back in Ireland, which makes you stop and think, right, why report that concern in the UK? Why not back home where the children actually were?
That's a really critical detail, isn't it? It's one of the very first signs of some kind of disconnect from, let's say, typical reasoning. Such an unusual choice. It definitely points towards a disturbed mental state, even at this really early point.
Yeah. So a few hours pass. It's 11:30 a.m. now, same day. They get on a National Express coach heading for London, but they don't stay on it for long. They suddenly get off at a motorway service station, Kiel Services. Now, police reports later said they claimed they felt unwell. But the bus driver, he told a very different story. He described their behavior as very erratic, said they were clinging really tightly to their bags, and when they refused to let him search the bags, he was maybe worried about illegal items or something, he wouldn't let them back on the coach.
And that driver's account is crucial here. That refusal, the bag clinging, the erratic behavior, it all suggests this, heightened state of paranoia or maybe agitation. It seems to be escalating pretty rapidly. The service station manager was suspicious too, apparently. Called the police. But the police, they assessed the situation and decided the sisters weren't a threat. In hindsight, that was a grave misjudgment, a real missed opportunity.
So the police let them go. The twins just walk off. And eventually they end up on the M6 motorway. And this is where things become a public spectacle because a reality TV crew filming a show called Motorway Cops happened to be there. They filmed the sisters walking right into the central reservation, the middle lane, and then trying to cross the entire motorway. Busy traffic, causing absolute pandemonium. I mean, imagine the sheer terror for those drivers. Seeing these 2 women just appear in front of them. There's another layer here, too. Sabina and Ursula's older brother, he later told a Swedish newspaper that the twins believed they were being pursued by maniacs. Who these maniacs were, well, we have no idea. But it does give us a hint about their possible delusional state, doesn't it?
It really does. That claim, being pursued combined with running into traffic, it points strongly towards paranoid delusions. And Sabina actually screamed, "They're going to steal your organs," right before she was hit by a car. Ursula was hit by a truck. Her legs were crushed, but she was apparently still screaming at paramedics trying to help her. Both survived these initial impacts somehow. That "steal your organs" scream. It's a pretty clear manifestation of a specific type of paranoid delusion. That and the complete disregard for their own safety, it really fits with the idea of a shared psychotic episode, folie à deux, as it's sometimes called, even if it wasn't officially diagnosed right then.
But what happened next? It almost defies belief. Highway agency officers actually managed to stop the sisters for a moment. Things seemed to calm down. Incredibly, reports say they were smoking, chatting, almost like nothing had happened. But then as the police arrived on scene, Ursula suddenly just bolted, ran straight into the path of an oncoming truck. Again. And seconds later, Sabina did the same thing, ran straight into a car, a Volkswagen Polo, hitting the bonnet hard. It's just unbelievable. And even after sustaining these severe injuries, it wasn't over. Sabina regained consciousness, and she started clawing and spitting at the police officers who were trying to save her life, screaming things like, "I recognize you, you're not real," and repeating that claim about her organs being stolen. Then, incredibly, she manages to get to her feet, asks, "Why do you kill me?" punches a police officer, tries to run again. They eventually had to handcuff her.
That whole sequence. From apparent calm to sudden violence, then claiming rescuers are attackers. It suggests such a profound break from reality. The repeated themes, organ theft, persecution, they're classic symptoms of paranoid psychosis. And there's another strange detail. Police found multiple broken mobile phones at the scene, which adds to the puzzle, doesn't it? Hints at some kind of frantic, maybe desperate activity right before they ended up on the motorway trying to call someone, destroying evidence of something we just don't know.
Ursula was badly hurt. She was air ambulanced to the hospital. Sabina, though, despite everything she'd just been through, she reportedly became oddly calm and collected after a few hours, so much so that she was released from the hospital just 5 hours later, discharged into police custody. And while she was being processed, she said something really chilling. She said, "We say in Sweden that an accident rarely comes alone. Usually at least one more follows, maybe two." A truly ominous thing to say. And then the very next day, Sabina finds herself in court. She pled guilty. Punching the officer, trespassing on the motorway. The sentence: a single day in custody, which of course she'd already served overnight while being processed and checked at the hospital. And here's the most astonishing part, really. No psychological evaluation was ordered. None. She was just free, released to wander the streets of Stoke-on-Trent, carrying her stuff in a clear plastic bag given to her by the hospital, looking for her sister.
Yeah, this is where the lack of intervention becomes just tragic. I mean, given the extreme behavior, the violence, the self-harm, just hours before, releasing her back into the public without a mental health assessment, it was a catastrophic oversight by the system, truly.
So later that same day, around 7 p.m., two local men spot Sabina. Glenn Hollinshead, he was 54, a former RAF airman, as friend Peter Malloy. Sabina seemed friendly at first, apparently. She even stroked their dog. They started talking, but Peter Malloy later said he felt unnerved by her, said she seemed very nervous, jumpy. Sabina asked them for directions to a hotel or a B&B, but Glenn, maybe just out of kindness, maybe concern, he invited her back to his place, which was nearby. Once they got inside Glenn's house, Sabina's paranoia seemed to kick in again. She couldn't stop looking out the window, apparently, kept peering out. At one point, she offered the men cigarettes, but then snatched them back right before they could light them, claimed they might be poisoned. Peter Malloy decided to leave before midnight. He must have felt quite uncomfortable. Sabina, though, she stayed the night.
Right, the poison cigarettes fear. It just reinforces those earlier delusions, the organ theft theme. It's all part of the same paranoid pattern. And her staying in a stranger's house, even while clearly agitated, it suggests this desperate, perhaps completely misguided search for safety, anywhere but out there alone.
The next day goes by. Then, around 7:40 in the evening, Glenn Hollinshead leaves his house for just a moment. He goes next door to ask a neighbor for some tea bags. Simple as that. Less than a minute later, he staggers back outside. He's bleeding heavily. He manages to tell his neighbor, "She stabbed me." His last words reportedly were, "Look after my dog for me." Just heartbreaking. While the neighbor is frantically calling 999, Sabina runs from Glenn's house. Witnesses saw her fleeing and, disturbingly, hitting herself over the head with a hammer as she ran. A passing motorist tried to intervene, trying to restrain her. She hit him with a roof tile she somehow had in her pocket. Yes, a roof tile. She then reached a bridge over the A50 and jumped off. Fell 40 feet. She survived the fall, but broke both her ankles, fractured her skull. She was rushed to hospital again, and this time arrested on suspicion of murder. So fast forward a bit. Sabina was formally charged and taken to custody on September 11th. She was still in a wheelchair from the fall. Ursula, her twin sister, she was actually released from hospital that same month. She flew back to America. Ursula never faced any charges related to any of this. The sisters, once seemingly inseparable in their shared psychosis, were now separated by prison bars in an ocean.
It's a really striking divergence in their paths, isn't it? After sharing such an intense, bizarre experience, it highlights just how complex these situations are, both medically and legally. Both were clearly unwell, but only Sabina's actions led to a death while in that state.
On September 2nd of the following year, Sabina pled guilty. Not to murder, but to manslaughter, on the grounds of diminished responsibility. And throughout the whole legal process, she apparently offered zero explanation for anything she did. To every question asked, her response was just no comment. Left this huge void.
That plea, diminished responsibility, is really significant here. It's a legal acknowledgement that, yes, she committed the act, the killing, but crucially, that her mental state at the time was so severely impaired that her moral culpability was reduced. Both the prosecution and the defense lawyers actually agreed on this. They agreed she was, legally speaking, insane at the time of the killing, though not insane at the time of the trial itself. And this is where that folie à deux concept really came into play in the legal arguments. The defense basically argued she suffered from a transmitted insanity, passed from her twin, Ursula, the idea being Ursula might have been the sort of primary source of the delusion, and Sabina caught it, essentially bought into her sister's hallucinations.
Okay, so the prosecution accepted this. Diminished responsibility due to this shared psychosis.
Yes, they accepted the plea. Sabina was then sentenced to 5 years in prison. She served her time at Bronzefield Women's Prison. Now, a 5-year sentence for taking a life might sound short to some, but it reflects the court's acceptance that her actions were driven by severe mental illness, not malice. It's that difficult balance the legal system has to find.
It just leaves you reeling, doesn't it? So many unanswered questions still hang over this case. Was it definitely folie à What triggered it so suddenly? Was it something during their travel, something before Ursula even arrived in Ireland? And what about that initial report Sabina made about her children being in danger? What happened with that? Did her concern just vanish in the psychosis? It's baffling.
It really is. The why remains the most haunting part. What internal or external forces could possibly drive two seemingly ordinary women to such extreme, violent, and self-destructive acts? It forces us to confront how little we sometimes understand about the deep workings of the human mind. And it also, tragically, highlights potential gaps in how society responds to acute mental health crises when they present themselves so dramatically to authorities. Could it have been prevented at any point?
The Eriksson twins case. It's just a profound enigma. Two women, seemingly normal lives. Then this sudden, inexplicable plunge into a shared madness. And the devastating consequence, the senseless death of Glenn Hollinshead, an innocent man who tried to help. It really makes you think about the thin line between sanity and something else, the hidden vulnerabilities we might all have.
Absolutely. What stays with me isn't just the sheer horror, but the enduring mystery of it all. It challenges our fundamental assumptions about reality, consciousness, and what keeps us grounded. A truly disturbing case study.
We hope this deep dive into the Eriksson twins story has given you, well, a lot to think about. It certainly leaves us with chills. What do you make of this bewildering case? There are so many theories out there. If you find these kinds of chilling true stories compelling, please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Horror Docs. We explore cases like this regularly. Thank you for joining us on this very unnerving journey today.